On today's show, college football rankings are out. First week, we'll review that. Some more issues for Michigan. If you win the World Series, but nobody watches it, did it actually happen? The Raiders are not very good. And then we finish off remembering our dear, dear friend, Bull from Night Court. Wake up, Mules Nation. Time to dig in. Welcome to Sports Mules. I'm your host, Eric Kiner. Wherever you guys are listening from, however you guys are listening, thank you for tuning in and making us part of your day. I really do appreciate it. So the music playing at the intro is called Anchors Away. And as, you know, a Navy vet, a sailor, Anchors Away, absolutely. I'm totally in. But it does sound like some sort of intro music to some sort of workplace violence informational video, which I know all about. I've seen enough of them. I've been a part of enough of them, so I just thought it was funny. I'd leave that one in there. So there's that lovely tidbit to start it off. And I hate a lot of things in life, but there's three things I really hate, right? The cold, people who don't use blinkers, and emails that turn into meetings. And I experienced all three of them today. It's freezing here this morning. It was like 20-something when I got up. Going to work. People don't use blinkers. I think they think they're optional tools. And then I went into work because I was having a meeting, and then the meeting got canceled, and then I stayed. And then the meeting got rescheduled, and then I got on the meeting, and it could have just been an email. But hey, we all have to have some sort of job security. So huzzah for that. So we'll get into the show here real quick, but again, thank you guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Any comments, questions, concerns, threats of violence you guys have, please feel free to submit them. Help the show get better, help me get better. And I just really want to hear from you guys and kind of what you want me to cover going forward, what you like, what you don't like. So please interact and yell at me, because it's quite honestly the only way that I understand human interaction anymore. So we'll start off here with our lead topic here. So Tuesday, week one of the college football playoff rankings came out, and not really to a lot of people's surprise, Ohio State was number one, followed by Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, and Oregon round out the top six here. We'll go over the full top 10 here in a second, but usually the top six, the last couple of years is where the majority of the Final Four has come from, right? Not a lot of people have come from seventh and back to make the Final Four here. So we'll go over this real quick, and I know some people had some questions about Ohio State being number one, but honestly, they do have the best record so far, strength of schedule compared to anybody else. Ohio State has their victory over Notre Dame, and they have their victory over Penn State. And, whatever you want to say about those two teams, they both are in the top 15 overall. They are, both very good and very competitive teams. And to get the victories that they had kind of really does set them above from everybody else. Georgia really hasn't played anybody so far this season. Same thing with Michigan. Florida State had a good overtime victory against Clemson, but Clemson is not where they've been the last 6 years, decade or so. And then Washington and Oregon round out the top six here. Washington obviously has the victory over Oregon earlier this season. Both teams are very, very good teams, right? They both have great offenses, great defenses, just well-rounded teams. Washington gets the win. So right now they have the tiebreaker. If they both have one loss at the end of the season. But right now, the last 4 weeks of the season, Washington has the harder kind of road to run here, because this week they have USC, and then they have Utah, Oregon State, and then finish with Washington State. Oregon has Cal, SC, Arizona State, and Oregon State. So, Washington we'll really see exactly what their caliber is the next month of football coming up here. Georgia, they have Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech. So their challenge as well, very similar to Washington. Their challenge, this last month of the season is, can they survive the gambit they have to go through and then make it to the SEC championship game? And, at that point, if they're undefeated in SEC championship game, I highly doubt anybody is going to vote out a one-loss SEC team to make it into the playoffs. So, but they do have a lot of challenges the rest of the way. Florida State has Pitt, Miami, North Alabama, and then they end up with Florida. Anything could happen, right? It's like they say about the NFL, right? Any given Sunday. Same thing with college football, right? Anybody can win on any given day, depending on the weather, people's attitudes, people's mindsets. They start looking over somebody, or they just not their day. Too many errors, so anything could happen. And then the last one for these top six, right? Ohio State and Michigan. Obviously, the big game at the end of the season, Ohio State and Michigan still have to play each other. And if both of them are undefeated at that point, again, I don't really see if, whoever wins, if it's one loss, and, the other one, whoever loses, when it comes to, the Final Four, unless, Washington or Florida State or Oregon, whomever, really comes off and really blows everybody else's socks off, I still think it's difficult for somebody on the committee to say, oh, one loss, Ohio State or Michigan, whose only loss is to Ohio State or Michigan, to not still make the playoffs. So they still have to go against each other. Michigan still has Penn State in there, but there's a lot you can be said about Penn State under Franklin and their performance against both of these schools, against Ohio State and against Michigan, and then just against kind of top 5 and top 10 schools in general, is not that great. So, there's still a lot left to go this season. There's still a lot of exciting games, and there's still a lot of work for all these programs to kind of get through. But I would say if things go as planned, I would still say probably this top 4 to get in. I would probably go with Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Washington. End of the day, right? If Washington wins the Pac-12, I think a Washington team is vastly superior to a Florida State team. Florida State's, improving every week, every season. They've been getting better the last 3 years, but I think for this season here, if you're going into the top 4, like I said, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Washington would probably be my picks. And then you finish out, the top 10 here for college football playoff here. So number 7, Texas. 8 is Bama. 9's Oklahoma after that tough loss to Kansas this past weekend. And then Ole Miss rounds out the top 10. And again, right, Georgia is playing Ole Miss in 2 weeks, so that will kind of shape itself out there. Texas and Oklahoma, if they both continue to win out, they're most likely going to play each other in the final Big 12 championship game that they'll be eligible for before they both go to the SEC. So they'll kind of knock each other out on that one. So there's a lot here in the top 10 that will kind of flush itself out in the next couple weeks, as a lot of these teams are going head-to-head and facing off and then going to their championship game. So, like I said, I gave my top 4, who I think will probably be in it at the end of the day if things continue how they are. And this is our top 10 overall, but, for it's first week, right? The first week is always a challenge. It's always kind of a shock to some people to see who's ranked where. But, we still have, a very difficult, 4 or 5 weeks left of the regular season, and then championship Saturday, when all of these conferences have their title games that really kind of solidify who's going to be in it here. But it should be a very exciting watch, right? This is why college football is, if not, the top sport in this country. It's, if it's not one, it's 1A behind the NFL because of, just these incredible matchups and things to watch throughout the rest of the year, and then to kind of figure out going into the playoffs here. So I'm excited for it, and I think you should be too. Speaking of college football playoffs, one of these teams that we were just discussing is in the middle of kind of some serious issues. So last episode, we talked about things to watch and the issues with the whole spying issues that Michigan has allegedly been dealing with. So some more information has come out, and some more things have changed in the last week. So University of Michigan has pulled Jim Harbaugh's contract extension from him. So they are kind of putting a little pause on it to see exactly what's happening and who's responsible, and before they kind of solidify any money coming in here. And part of some of the other information that's come out is there is a lovely photo online. Well, there's a few lovely photos. So the first one we'll talk about is, so apparently Ohio State was aware last season of the sign stealing. And before the playoff game between TCU and Michigan, leading up to it, Ohio State contacted TCU and said, hey, Michigan is stealing signs, just so you're aware. And TCU said, wow, thank you very much. And then proceeded to make a bunch of dummy calls and change signals and did some other things. And there is a photo online of during the game, and if you don't recall, Michigan was big favorites to go into this playoff game last year against TCU and struggled mightily throughout the game, came back, tied it up, got a lead, gave up the lead, and then had probably the worst string of plays and decision-making I had ever seen. And that last drive they had where they didn't use timeouts, they were throwing the ball to absolutely nobody. They looked like Keystone Cops out there running around, and lose to TCU. And there is a photo of Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, kind of looking disheveled and curious as to what is happening. And directly behind him is one of the members of his coaching staff with a sheet that clearly displays the signs and signals of TCU. So that is a problem. And then earlier this year at the Central Michigan State team game, Michigan State, a team that obviously later in the season Michigan would play and played a few weeks ago and defeated, but the person who is, again, allegedly at the center of this thing is seen wearing Central Michigan gear and what looks to be wearing some sort of 1975 spy glasses that is recording video of Michigan State sideline. There is another video and pictures where it shows a play is run out of bounds right by him, and he knows clearly that the cameras on TV have followed the play over to where he is, and he is trying to kind of put his head down and pull his hat down and hide himself. So things aren't good. And then you add on, Jim Harbaugh's self-imposed, hiatus to begin the season because of, the recruiting violations that he had. And then I think everybody still forgets that the FBI raided the football office and took one of their assistant coaches' computers and still hasn't said why they've taken everything. But usually anytime the FBI kind of raids your buildings and takes your computers, it's usually not good. It's never happened to me, knock on wood, but usually it's not a great thing. So Michigan is in some trouble, and the NCAA and the Big Ten are in some trouble. And as of yet, neither of these organizations have done anything or really come out and said anything against Michigan. And I think we all understand that the NCAA does not handle serious situations very well. They tend to kind of zone out and then punish somebody else later on 3 times worse for this because they feel embarrassed, but they don't really handle this kind of stuff very well. But again, they haven't done anything, nor have they said anything, nor has the Big Ten. And quite frankly, the reason I bring this up is taking signals and trying to figure out signals. I said last week, that is a part of coaching and part of game planning, right? You watch some film and see what you can see, and during the game, you do what you do to kind of get a competitive edge, right? That's fine. And all of this is a gray area, I'll also say. But the fact that they have seemed to created this mechanism and almost department within Michigan football that is going around and gathering this intel, because I know what that is as well, gathering intel. This is kind of above and beyond any kind of game prep or competitive edge, right? At this point, it is somewhat cheating to do this, right? So my question to all of you and to the NCAA and to Big Ten is, what happens if, say, Michigan runs the table, right? Beats Penn State, is undefeated against Ohio State, beats Ohio State, goes into the Big Ten championship, wins the Big Ten championship, and is, depending on how everything goes out, has a possibility of being the number 1 seed in the playoffs this year. And then say even worse if they go and win the whole thing this year, and then when the season is said and done and everything else, the NCAA comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, they committed major violations." All these other teams and all these other staffs who have done all this work, to some extent, it's kind of a slap in the face to these guys because they have, again, everybody is cheating to some extent, but not to this kind of organizational level. And to the people out there that just say, well, these are just, low-level guys trying to move their way up. Jim Harbaugh knows, right? Things don't happen in organization. This is an organization, right? This is a business. This is an organization. Things do not happen in multi-million, billion-dollar organizations such as this without the top guy knowing and green lighting everything, right? Jim Harbaugh didn't just go, "Oh, wow, we got these signals. That's awesome. What a break. What a break. We really won out." No, he knows what's going on. So NCAA and the Big Ten need to resolve this and figure something out very soon, because the longer they let this go on and the closer it gets to Championship Saturday and the more Michigan wins, this is only going to get worse for everybody involved, and it's a black eye and a tarnish on this incredible sport and this incredible competition that we all love. So do better, NCAA. So before we get going in here on our next group of conversation subjects and starters, is a hot dog a sandwich? That's a question. I had that posed to me, and it has all the characteristics of a sandwich, but I think it might be in its own class. I don't know. It's weird to say that a hot dog has its own class. I mean, dumpster food, does that count? I don't know, but something for everybody to ponder. Speaking of dumpster fires and dumpster food, so the Raiders this week, as some sort of midnight massacre, fired basically everybody, right? The GM is gone, head coach is gone, the offensive coordinator is gone, and Chucky Bowl Haircut himself is still running the organization out there in Las Vegas for the Raiders. So I don't understand how one organization can be this dysfunctional for this long. It is mind-boggling. Like, how the hell? So you couldn't figure out anything in Oakland, so you moved to L.A. Couldn't get that figured out, so you moved back to Oakland, screwed up that stadium and everything else out there, got this absolutely beautiful facility and new stadium in Vegas. Tom Brady, for God's sake, has come on as a partial owner and still can't figure it out. Cannot figure it out. And at this point, I think we have seen for Josh McDaniels, this is now two, right? This is two times that he has been given the reins of an NFL franchise, right? He wasn't the GM, but head coach and GM, if it's done properly, which I guess I shouldn't say that for the Raiders, but if it's done properly, right, they kind of work together, right? Kind of single-minded of what they need. But this is now two times now that this guy has been in charge of the Broncos and the Raiders, and both of them gone down in complete flames. And he clearly does not know what he's doing. The GM here as well got fired, just making horrible decisions. So, and then the OC gets fired, even though technically isn't Josh McDaniel? Wasn't he this great offensive guru? You know, that he did with the Pirate or the Patriots all these years, and Tom Brady and all the incredible things they did. I thought he was some offensive genius. Well, he wasn't an offensive genius. Apparently, he's just an offensive genius. So the Raiders need to just completely overhaul that entire organization. Mark Davis needs to bring in somebody to run the organization. I don't even mean a GM. I mean somebody to run it, because he clearly doesn't know what he's doing either out there, right? I have never seen anybody. He looks like me after like a massive weekend bender, right? His hair is constantly screwed up. He's wearing the same clothes all the time. I mean, this guy's living the life and just cluster effing it up out there. So he needs to hire somebody to be like, listen, the checks are in my name, but you have to run this organization. You have to find a proper GM. You have to find a proper head coach who can run this place and run this organization and this team the way it needs to be run, because clearly the last 30 years, other than some great, glimpses and bursts of what you would want, the Raiders have been just a joke. So they need to bring in somebody to run this organization. Like I said, not a GM, somebody else, top to bottom, figure it out. Antonio Pierce is the interim head coach, and I hope they give him an actual opportunity to be the head coach and run this team and see what he can do. Right? Just don't just have him in there to run out the clock and take a knee. Give him an actual opportunity to see if they can use him going forward. But yeah, the Raiders are just terrible. And speaking of terrible, Eagles-Cowboys this weekend. Who will fight more, on the field or in the stands? I don't know. What's the over-under on fights in the stands? I'm going to go with 60. So you can go above or beyond that. So Eagles-Cowboys this weekend. Watch out for that. Congratulations to the Texas Rangers, who last week we talked about GM, Princeton grad, although the Diamondbacks GM, also a Princeton grad. So congratulations to Princeton. They did it. But Texans win. 2 seasons ago, they had 100-plus losses, and here they are. They now, world champs. They had a great season. It was well-deserved. But like we also talked about last week, the ratings for this World Series were in the absolute just lowest they have ever been. And again, it's an issue of people, sports fans in America want to see underdogs win, and they love for it to happen. They love for it to bet on it, right? This is how we like it. But then when it gets crunch time, people actually want to see. They want to see a team. They want to see a series because they either despise one of the teams in it or because they love one of the teams in it. And if it's not Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Dodgers, Astros, nobody seems to care. So it was a shame. Most of these games, there was a lot of good matchups in it and a lot of good young stars to be able to see out there and see some fresh faces. So I enjoyed watching it, but apparently I am in the minority on that one because nobody else watched it. So congratulations to them, right? They well deserved. They should enjoy it, and we'll see what happens going into to next season if anybody wants to go from there. Speaking of NCAA doesn't know what they're doing. So James Madison, a few years ago, they were just crushing it in FCS, so the championship series, so right below FBS. Just killing it. An incredibly well-run athletics department, top to bottom. The school and their boosters really dedicated themselves to giving it the funding and the attention and the energy to make it a premier program at their level. And, over the last, decade, they were competing for a national championship almost every year. And really, they won one in there. The only time half the time they would get eliminated was from the playoffs was playing North Dakota State, which, almost everybody's losing to North Dakota State. But they made a conscious decision, right? This is what we want to do. We want to move up to the top level, right? We want to move up there. So we're going to dedicate ourselves to this purpose and work from there. And, so far this season, this is their second year that they've moved up in the Sun Belt, and they're currently 8-0. And the remainder of their schedule, they have a very, very distinct possibility that they can go 12-0 on the season. But because of NCAA rules, they are not bowl eligible because the NCAA wants to give programs that move up a little grace period in case they struggle, so they don't have to worry about those type of things. So they will not be eligible for the playoffs, or they won't be. Well, yes, they won't be eligible for the playoffs, but they're also not eligible to go to a bowl game, even though they may finish undefeated. And I think this is on the NCAA to instead. I understand why they give a grace period, right? But I think their focus shouldn't be on watching and helping out teams when they move up. It should be before they move up, right? JMU, James Madison, has put in so much time and energy to getting better and being a great program to move up that when they did move up, they were already ready to go and they were already set. So I think teams like Sam Houston right now are struggling because Sam Houston did not put in the time and energy beforehand when they moved up. They just thought, well, we were top program. We've done pretty good. We're from Texas. We got some money. We should be good. Well, they didn't do the work beforehand, and now they're suffering now. And because they're suffering, James Madison now has to suffer. So they can apply. James Madison can apply for kind of, get me out of jail free card. But, NCAA is probably not going to do it because they don't, as usual, they don't want to make themselves look foolish. But, end of the year, we might have a 12-0 team, may even win their conference championship, and then not be eligible for New Year's Six game. They won't be eligible for any bowl game. And that's kind of a shame on that level. So, again, NCAA, do better, be better. And then kind of the last subject we'll touch on here for this segment is it's a little sad. So Adam Johnson, the player, hockey player overseas, was playing for Nottingham Panthers, and just a very tragic freak accident. A hockey player catches a blade in the throat, and won't get into it, but unfortunately passes away. And it is a freak incident, but the fact that there weren't precautions beforehand to kind of prevent this is what kind of makes me a little uneasy and questions exactly what we're doing, right? Everything else in sports, at whatever sport, at whatever level, right? It's always player safety, player safety, player safety. You hear it all the time, right? You watch a game and you'll hear it 10 times a game, player safety. And there are pieces of equipment that can kind of help safeguard around this, right? There for hockey, there are neck and wrist guards that can be worn to give some protection against this. And I'm proud to say that my lovely hometown, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and then the minor league team below them, Wheeling, are the first teams to mandate the neck and wrist guards for all of their players. And I think this is kind of the beginning trend. Hopefully we'll see it more. But, for most things, for any safety rules and safety changes, it always takes a tragedy before, a sport or people are forced to change and make themselves safer and make the sport safer. And it is unfortunate that Adam Johnson had to lose his life over this. But I think if NHL changes the rules and hockey changes the rules and these protective equipment becomes standard and mandatory for everybody to wear and have, and it prevents something like this happening in the future, as sad as it is, if more people are saved in the future before it's one of those situations where it takes a disaster to then future save somebody's life, right? It's seatbelts in cars. So, I'm very happy and very proud to see, these organizations get ahead of the leagues themselves and say, "Fine, we'll take care of this then," right? If you're not going to tell us to do it, we know what's right and what's wrong, and we're going to do it. So, tragedy, but hopefully save some lives going forward. Now we'll go over our shout outs for the week. So it hurt, and it's not great. And, I like they say, all publicity is good publicity, I guess. But last Saturday, my beloved Mules lost to Johns Hopkins, and basically the very last play of the game, 34-28. And then we made the Sports Center college football finale. So there's that. That's a bonus. So free publicity. Sucks that it came that way, but still super proud of them. Super proud of those guys, the staff and the players. They did a phenomenal job. Just, they were down 28-14 at one point and could have just said, well, not our week. This game's over. But in typical Mules fashion, never give up. Fought their way to the end. Came up short, but super proud of them. Super proud to be a Mule. And, we made TV. Not the way I wanted, but hey, we'll take it. Some shout-outs, some sad shout-outs, but some shout-outs nonetheless. So the last couple of days we have lost Bob Knight, who passed away yesterday. Everybody's heard Matthew Perry passed away a few days ago, and then Richard Mole has also passed. So Richard Mole is Bull from Night Court. He was a giant of a man. Also, he was bald on the show because he shaved his head, but he had maybe what might have been the greatest head of hair I've ever seen. Like, I was jealous. I'll admit, I was jealous of his hair. And but he has also passed. And I think anytime as you get older and people from your childhood that you grew up watching, either athletes or actors or whoever it happens to be, it's always somewhat sad because it makes you think of the passing of time. But then, for Bob Knight and Richard Ball, they both got to live very good, very long lives. Matthew Perry is obviously the saddest of them all. Man who dealt with a lot of demons in his life, and seemed to be on kind of the road to being stable, right? If people with issues like that, substance issues, they're never 100% again. They're always battling it their whole life, but he seemed to be able to kind of be at peace with that monster inside of him, and then, unfortunately, tragically passed the way he did. But it's, for all these guys, you don't think of how it ended. You think of all the happiness and joy they brought us in the meantime, and we'll have those memories forever. And then my last shout out, I don't know if this is a good I know it's not a good shout out. I don't know if you've ever used this app. But I went to check something out because I do some research. I know it doesn't seem like it, but trust me, I do some research. And I was looking for some stuff on James Madison, and I saw basically exactly what I was looking for and thought, here we go. That's what I want. Clicked on the link, and then it just brought me to complete nonsense. And the complete nonsense is ESPN's mobile app. What trash. Every time I've ever used it, every time you click on the link, instead of taking you to the article that you want to read about, it just takes you to, the regular main page. Hey, I want to read about JMU that you're talking about. That's great. Hey, by the way, the Lakers are losing by 4. Like, what the hell? I want to know what the Lakers are doing, but that's not what I'm here for right now, okay? Give me what I want, ESPN. God, you and Disney, the rest of you, you're all the worst. You're all the worst. Be better. NCAA, does Disney run the NCAA? Because it seems like it. Just trash. Nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just making up as they go. If you attack them, they just get pissy. God, be better. Be better, Disney. Be better, ESPN. And be better, NCAA. If you've made it this far, thank you guys so much. Give yourself a wonderful gold star. And if you're of age, go have yourself a drink on me. I really appreciate it. Of age, I said it. Go have yourself a drink on me. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who listens. I appreciate everybody who gives me feedback. It's fun. Hopefully I'm getting better every week. It's very odd to sit here and talk to yourself in a microphone for a half hour while your cat gives you dirty looks. So hopefully I'm getting better at it. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Please leave a comment, leave some feedback, what you like, what you don't like, something you want me to cover. I really do enjoy talking to all of you guys. So enjoy yourselves, have some fun, a lot of great football and just sports in general this weekend coming up, right? NHL and NBA are kind of in full swing, and NFL. So enjoy yourselves, be safe. It's Bacon Fest in downtown Easton. So if you're in the area, come on down and annoy the hell out of me because I can't go anywhere because it's literally outside my door, and I can't park anywhere. It's just nonsense and noise, but it smells like bacon, and who the hell can argue with things smelling like bacon? So dig in, go Mules, talk to you soon.